There we go. You should be seeing my screen now, right? Can you hear me?
I see it.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Sorry. All right. So first off, I'm Jeremy Emberling, and I am a solutions architect here at Keysight. The product I represent is eggplant test automation. So as far as my understanding, real quick, if you don't mind, what's your current exposure or understanding of test automation? Do y'all use that currently in any of your projects that y'all do?
No.
Not much.
Okay, all right, cool. So as was stated earlier, when we look at eggplant and we look at end-to-end testing and automation needs, it's really the glue that pulls it all together here. So I'll kind of break this down for you on each layer as we go through this. So first off, we have the orchestration layer, then we have the execution engine, the system under test, and then the application under test. So typically when you're talking about automation, you're talking about this component of whatever the execution engine is, be, programming language like Python or something like that, or a solution like eggplant, that's going to be interacting with a device or a machine, piece of software that is then running, then that would be your application and your test. So this is the breakdown of how our solution looks, and the way that I'll explain this is kind of backwards so that you can kind of contextualize what we provide as far as a solution and how that really ties in with the bigger picture here. All right, so when we look at the device, the system under test here, it really comes down to how we connect to devices. So when eggplant, the whole goal of eggplant is for us to be able to automate anything we need to for the purposes of testing. However, it turns out that we can use it as just a general automation tool for not just testing of software, but for also, robotic process automation. So if we look at chaining together an end-to-end flow of any kind of activities that we would want to generate or test against, that's where the real power comes in here. So as far as running and doing system interaction, our scripting language can interact with your system shell. We can create raw TCP sockets. We can interact with system processes, do your standard in and out interaction with the system, and be able to, of course, integrate with Skippy commands for interconnecting with Keysight and other vendors that use that protocol. And we can, of course, interact with databases, assist and interact and test web APIs, and using WebDriver, we can automate, Selenium, which is typically web browser automation, and Appium, which would be your mobile application testing. But our real bread and butter and what we're known for is for our visual recognition. And so I'll be showing you that in a few seconds here, but we can connect over, your normal desktop, remote desktop connectivity solutions. So it makes it really easy to interact with the system in a non-invasive way. In respects to our DoD customer base, they cannot install anything on the systems that they need to test against, such as, a software agent. So they leverage, IP KVMs that Eggplant then automates to enable testing on those embedded and very custom configurations there. But we can also use things like video cameras and capture cards, so that really opens up what we can leverage for our visual recognition piece of our technology here. And of course, for mobile devices, we can interact with iOS and Android. We provide a gateway companion application that's able to interface with those devices so that you can enable complete automation of iOS and Android from an end user perspective there. And then for any kind of cloud needs as far as testing goes. We have a partnership with Sauce Labs, so you have access to thousands of real devices for Android and Apple devices, as well as emulators and simulators for both of those platforms. So to go into why that's all powerful and what makes our tool really beneficial, especially to Keysight, is enabling things like this. So what you're seeing in this video is Eggplant automating activity not only on that mobile device, but all of the Keysight gear that you see in front of you, which includes a UXM, so a 5G simulated network. We can test the network conditions and also control the device itself all at the same time here so that we can, better measure and test conditions in a lab scenario that reflect what we get and collect in the real world with, field testing and those types of things. So it really ties together on the device side. That's what makes it really powerful, and that's why we have the confidence to say that we can test any application on any device or any platform because of that versatility that Eggplant brings to the table there. And really why it's so powerful in my opinion, and why I feel like it's worth mentioning this side of it for your specific scenario. You have a lot of college students, they need to get up to speed on all of these types of technologies and you want to enable them, but there's always going to be a learning curve. And the beauty of what we're able to do is take a GUI like this. You don't have to know anything about the underlying system. It can be completely black box, and we can come in and just look at the visual UI of the software and make these automations without knowing programming or having a a background of engineering in any kind. This tool is commonly used in the healthcare industry by former nurses to do robotic process automation and testing inside of the healthcare system. So the thing that enables this, empowers this, if I can get my presentation work, is our scripting language. And that's called SenseTalk. And it's designed to be a very easy to use English-based language that is quick for anyone to pick up and understand, which in my opinion, with the amount of students, you work on a project, someone else might want to pick it up a few years later. If you do that with Python or Java or any kind of traditional programming language, it can be a little complicated sometimes to know what a person's doing. And so to give you an idea of the exact same actions being done here, using Python and Selenium to automate some actions on a web page, this is what that would look like. Those exact same actions when using SenseTalk with Selenium looks like this. It's a little bit less programmer looking and more human readable. But when we see how we can, how those same actions look when we use our visual recognition side, it's even more simplistic here, because we're not looking at elements like a computer would be looking at the elements here. We're referencing images in each one of these, click forum, local, new post, etc., which, is human visible. So it's a whole lot easier for people to create scripts and get up and going with these automation flows than a lot of the traditional ways that we would approach automation. So is there any questions so far where I'm at?
No, I think the Sauce Labs with the device, that will be something, and I'm assuming the video demo that you have shown, that will be something of interest to us. But I also wanted to apologize. I have a 11:30 hard stop. We're in the middle of a faculty search, so we just got the schedule like a week ago. So I have a hard stop at 11:30.
Okay. So team, do we want to switch over to someone else, or what are we looking like on time here? I'm in a different time
Yes,
zone. So,
yeah, it will be the Ixia team,
okay, all
right?
right, so you want to switch over to that, or, I don't know what time looks
Yes,
like, I know, okay,
yes,
all right, cool.
please.
All right, well, thank you for your time, and we'll be sure to, reach out and follow up on this.
Yeah, thank you so much.
So in 2017, thank you very much, by the way. My name is Jared Sukata, SE manager for Fed. So that's an interesting connection point back to Cal Poly. But Ixia presence is strong within the equipment manufacturers, the service providers, huge enterprise presence, and federal. What we do basically is we do a whole bunch of testing at every interface speed, virtual cloud, cybersecurity testing, and then on the visibility side, we help monitor all of these enterprise network environments. How do we do this from a cyber perspective? We have a dedicated research team. This is about 100 engineers in-house that have developed a system and a framework for gathering intelligence from third-party feeds, from public and private feeds, as well as our own managed, 2,000 node Conning pod, high fidelity. And we're always consuming this, we're learning from it, we're taking that information, that knowledge, and we're pumping it into products. Okay, and you can see a short list of those products there. I'm gonna cover some of those capabilities in a few of these slides here. So jumping straight into the why, right? I'm taking an approach of how do our customers leverage our products, and maybe you can find a way to leverage them within your teaching environment. What we've seen in the past and for the last decade, when it comes to network security, you have a traditional model of internet security, perimeter, and then assets to protect, right? The data center. And in that security stack, you typically find devices under test, like a next-gen firewall, IDS, IPS, DDoS mitigation, maybe some SSL decryption, and a variety of gateways. But where the world has gone is this distributed model, right? Really dispersed assets, remote VPNs, IoT, cloud, hybrid cloud, and along with that came an assortment of more modern ecosystems or systems under test, right? Where you have multiple vendors that need to come together to provide a security effect. And in this case, we've got both covered here, right? We sell test solutions to cover both of these landscapes. It's not like the one on the left is going away. You still have these huge data centers being built with 400 gig interfaces, soon to be 800 gig interfaces, all kinds of traffic going through in support of AI, ML workloads. That's not stopping, right? But what we have to be cognizant of is now with these modern architectures like Zero Trust and SASE, how do you actually know how well those are performing? You have to put them under test. All right, so what does the one on the left look like? Well, the traditional use case, if we're testing a next-gen firewall, a pretty typical scenario for us, especially in Fed, is an agency is going to want to buy the next greatest firewall, right? And they need to know before they make the investment whether the vendor that they're choosing is going to be able to provide what they need. And in order to make that a concrete, data-driven decision, you need to test. And so a lot of our DoD and civilian agencies will spend the time and effort to put up these labs and run bake-off scenarios. And so this particular product, which has been around for over a decade, has been the flagship cybersecurity test traffic generation tool It's actually called Breaking Point. I didn't want to put a lot of names in here because it gets confusing with all the names and the mapped capabilities, but really, if there's going to be somewhere where you know us, it's from Breaking Point. And it comes with an enormous library built over a decade of research, right? Updated every day. That attack library is updated every day. Another really cool thing about it that Noah will cover is its inclusion in cyber range exercises. Okay? Now, when we look at modern systems under test, we have to move away from the breaking point model because it was point to point. And these days, it's much more distributed. You have assets everywhere, and you need to be able to orchestrate tests from different locations in sometimes one-to-one, but oftentimes mesh topologies. And so we have capabilities, we have the tools to allow you to do these kinds of tests. We have the ability in this example that I lay out, a zero trust test effort, right? Where we're attempting to take hundreds of authorized users, unauthorized users, and compromised users and send them all at the same zero trust ecosystem, right? Where the policy enforcement point and the identity provider are both part of the system under test. This isn't done anywhere else, right? And now those vendors are able to say, yes, we've conducted our own quality assurance, and we know these are the scalability levels that we can achieve under certain conditions, right? All of the data sheets that you'll get from equipment manufacturers, a large majority of them have been proven with Ixia cyber test tools. Another segment here is the whole XDR, EDR market, right? And how that influences SIEMs and SOAR events. All of this is possible because now we have agent-based and containerized traffic initiation. So you can create very complicated scenarios like APTs. There's a whole library of them where there's anywhere from 5 to a dozen different stages within an attack execution, and you need to know where each stage was successfully mitigated, right? Where was the attacker stopped within an APT execution? That kind of information doesn't come through Breaking Point anymore. We had to evolve our cyber test tools. This particular instance that you're looking at is actually built for production systems. It's meant to live in a production network where you can actually, and very importantly, test how the defense was configured. Because however much proactive testing you've done previous to a deployment, that's great, but it truly matters how the production system is configured. And using a tool like this really is the way to determine how effective that defense posture is. We can also attack IoT devices. And in this case, we leverage a whole library of vulnerability scans, login attacks, things that you would want to throw at an IoT device without actually knowing how that service, that actual application that may be riding on top of that IoT device, we don't need to know how that works. We actually want to test the chipset, right? Some of the operating system parameters, some of the login parameters. And in this case, a lot of our early success with this has been with car manufacturers, right? Who are not security minded to begin with and need help building more robust car controller systems. And the big part of this is we've been able to leverage Keysight RF strengths to be able to send these attacks over the air, right? That's where you want them. Your Fitbit, your doorbell, your smart TV. These are all the landscape that we play in now. A little bit more time left. This isn't particularly just Ixia. This is actually the whole One Keysight family of things, and really just a subset, but just a nod to what we can do with 5G. I wanted to point this out because there's so much movement here with federal programs and 5G security. We're part of the NIST Collaboration Center, part of ATAR. We're deployed in a lot of proof of concept centers, providing a lot of the security, not just injection, but also the manipulation and monitoring, right? So really a full picture here of 5G capabilities.
Jared, there's a question.
Sure.
So so I think that IoT is the one that I was looking for. So I also wanted to kind of like quickly see if you had a slide on the cyber range.
Yeah. We were planning for Noah to cover some of the range
The
aspects.
IoT, yes, Noah, but we only have like a few minutes. So if you would like, Professor is saying we can do a separate IoT on the teaching side of things, what we offer in the EDU space with our traditional or classic instrumentation.
Okay, I think I have a pretty good idea for kind of the projects that might be very aligned with this thing, and I understand that the threat analysis tool, they also have an integration with the cyber range, and that's also of interest. No, I'm very sorry, I need to do a hard stop at 11:30, but if you could send me the slides, I think I will just jot down from each of the groups the next kind of very specific information and how the software works, maybe get some quotations of some of the things. I will prepare from each of these presentations, including the cyber range, and then I think Jane and Barnard, you can coordinate who
The
those
next
questions
the next discussion that we're gonna have. So maybe we can schedule that, and then when we send this, what we presented today, will you be able to give us some feedback so we can know the next steps and also what we need to do based on your questions and additional discussion we're going to do next, okay?
Absolutely.
Noah?
Mohammed, I was just gonna, before you leave, I was just gonna mention sort of the next phase of the discussion could be, there's a couple of things that I'll send you. One is a IoT kind of device level cybersecurity teaching tool, and the other is a fully integrated cyber range. So imagine, the stuff that Jared just talked about, incorporating things like SISOP and breaking point into a sort of, instructional lab framework with a kind of like an additional software wrapper that allows your students to integrate those instructional labs and those operational tools into kind of a package that you can launch from your own learning management system. So, you use your own Active Directory or your own single sign-on for authentication, and then you can launch into this cyber range teaching platform that incorporates some of the tools that Jared mentioned. And it basically just takes that operational cyber range framework and applies a little bit of a teaching pedagogy to it.
Okay, so we'll send those and also including everything that we have, and then please send us some feedback quickly. All right, thank you so much. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you, bye-bye.